So do you think it's harder to be female or male? Female. And why? Because women have more disadvantages in the workplace. They usually have a lower salary. They have to fight harder for the positions that they have. There's kind of that old boys club concept sometimes, where in certain type industries it's easier for a man to get the job and to do the, kind of the grip and grin and go, oh, hey pal, you can have this job, and they pay him a higher salary. And for women it's much harder to either break into the industry or make the same salary as men.
I think it's harder for women to live in modern day society because of the sexism that is still sort of prevalent. But I also think it's harder for men because they have to live up to a certain ideal that has been there for centuries and years and years and years. And so it's sort of hard to say if it's harder for men or women to live in society because both have their challenges.
Interesting.
From my perspective, with a little baby, I think being a woman is harder in society because there's expectations that you'll do the right thing in raising your baby, but also that you need to still work and support your family and raise the kid too, and clean the house and cook. So I think there's a lot of expectations from women, and even with the times changing, with our role in the workforce, we still have the expectations at home.
I think that they just have they can hold a lot more fear over you. Like, it's an intimidation factor. I think it's harder or easier. I think that they have this fear factor that girls can't be taken seriously if they try to impersonate that.
Right. And also, as being a girl, do you ever feel that, like, scared, like being scared or being taken advantage of?
Yeah.
That's always a good thing.
Yeah, there's situations that are really scary. And you definitely think about that before you go out, right? Or even with people you don't know.
Men make more money for doing the same job that a woman makes, but I've known many people in my generation, many couples, where the woman actually makes more money than the man. And I think that girls and women can tend to be more in tune with their bodies because we are forced to every month be aware of what our bodies are doing.
I guess you have to kind of look out for girls in the world, kind of have, you kind of, wasn't there some presidential candidate said that women shouldn't be allowed to go on the front lines of war because men might feel remorse for...
It's very different for males because they already think that they're, macho.
Or they have to be.
Right, and they have to bring the money for the family and be the role model, and then if they're taken advantage of, that's even worse, especially as children. Like very small children are taken advantage of, and that's not good for relationships or children.
And bullying of gay guys, it's too. Interestingly, there's, hundreds and hundreds of years ago, it was a matriarchal society, and it moved to a patriarchal society. And so I think what many people are trying to bring it back to is a recognition of the strengths and weaknesses in each.
What's easier, being a girl or a guy? I definitely think being a girl is a lot harder than being a guy. Just because, girls always have to fit into this mold, and there's always, oh, the girl needs to be, skinny and be perfect like this model. With guys, there's also that you need to be tall and you need to be, handsome and, strong.
And that's also, being put into a box that you have to fit into.
Yeah.
And with, relationships, do you feel like guys have that pressure to pay for food and ask the girl out instead of doing the opposite?
Well, I think society tells us that, the guy should always be the one he needs to make the first move, or he needs to buy the food, but it's like, no, guys can be shy too.
Right.
And it's like, you know, maybe the girl wants to buy the guy something. And I think it should be even, honestly. I think that
¿Crees que es más difícil ser hombre o mujer y por qué?
Mujer es más difícil porque las mujeres sufren más que los hombres.
Los dos tienen su diferencia. Para mí, es más difícil ser mujer.
Mujer?
Do you guys think it's harder being a boy or a girl, and why?
Well, I think it's harder being a girl because usually, well, girls at recess sometimes they can get excluded or like people make fun of them.
And what do you think?
I think probably a girl because boys don't have as much drama.
Interesting.
A lot more difficult to be a girl because in relationships, girls are much more sensitive and they process things differently than guys. Girls tend to overthink situations more than guys, making them like more complex as they think. Hi! Do you think it's easier to be a girl or a boy?
it's easier to be a boy.
Anyways, Muffin.
And Muffin, what do you think? Like,
What do you think?
I think it's harder to be a girl. We go through a lot of periods.
We go through a lot of periods.
And
Yeah, that's what we
in mood states where we have like mood changes. What is it called? Mood changes.
Mood swings.
Mood swings.
You know, I think it's kind of an interesting time in this recession, and you look at who has lost jobs, and it's unprecedented in that it's mostly men who have lost jobs in this particular recession. And as much as we've, I think, moved away from a lot of traditions of this patriarchal arrangement where the man is the one who's in charge, the man is the one who makes the money, and the woman stays home. We've moved away from that, but I think that there are still some social expectations of that. And so in that regard, I suppose, in a way that's different from women, it seems like men are defined by what they do as a career. And they can also be a father, obviously, and a husband and so forth, but I still feel like society kind of defines men by what they do rather than some of the familial connections that would maybe be associated with a woman. There's not an automatic assumption that a woman works outside the home.
Perfect.
¿Crees que es más difícil ser hombre o mujer y por qué?
Mujer. Porque tienes bebés.
Do you think that it's true that men are better in math than women, and how does that play for you?
The research that I've seen says that the male brain develops differently than the female brain, so sometimes younger boy at some age, teenage age, boys are better at spatial visualization than girls, and then girls are better at some other things. I think by the time you finish high school, everyone's equally good at everything.
So you think that you could be just as good as another math?
Absolutely.
En mi cultura, pienso que es más fácil ser un hombre porque una mujer tiene que hacer muchas cosas, aparte del trabajo de la casa, trabajar afuera, mantener la familia, y el hombre solo se enfoca en trabajar. Entonces es más fácil ser un hombre. Gracias.
Female.
Oh, female.
Male.
I think it's harder to be a female today.
I'd say female.
Pienso que
mujer. Female.
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 Male.
Male.
Female.
Male.
He doesn't know what I'm talking about. He's male.
Female.
Male.
Female. Male. Mujer. Mujer. I think it's harder to be a male.
Female.
Female.
Hombre.
I think it's harder to be a female.
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 Male.
Female.
Definitely a girl.
I think it's harder to be a female.
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 Yeah, man.
Male?
Female.
I think it's harder to be a male.
I think it's harder to be a female.
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 Depends on where you live, I think.
What about Marin County?
Marin County, I'd say probably male.
And why do you think male?
Because Marin County has become very pro-female, so that the females are generally the ones who are more believable, who are supported, that sort of thing. So the males get kind of left to their own devices.
Female.
And what do you think?
I think that depending on which, what society you're living in, which community you're living in, it could very much vary, but typically it is, I think, harder for females.
Female.
Female.
A female.
Probably a female, but trending towards being a male. I think that the times are changing, and so females get more attention, and they're graduating college at a higher rate than males are. They're the equal rights movement and female rights, I think, has taken hold, and they seem to be getting a lot of rights.
Perfect.
And I think women were misunderstood for a long time, and now I think men are starting to be misunderstood.
I think it's more difficult to be a male because I think the male's role has been compromised and complicated by the last 15 years. Amen.
Female. I think it's equally hard because roles have been changing for so long, and there are relatively new pressures for both men and women. I think as a woman I'm more in touch with why it's more difficult to be a woman, but I have a brother and a boyfriend and a dad, and I see how things have changed and how there's a lot of stress on males too.
Mujer.
Absolutely female.
I could say a male.
I think it's difficult to be both a female and a male in today's society for different reasons.
En nuestra cultura es más difícil ser mujer.
I think women have more naturally the ability to talk with one another and share their problems and seek support when they're feeling down. And for some men, that's very hard.
I just think girls are really strong, powerful beings, and being so aware of our bodies that we can and should be is very empowering, and should not make girls feel less than or less in control just because we might not have the same muscular strength. There is equality. Can you?
Well, for one, girls eat a lot of
I mean, you can say, don't do this.
More thought. Do you have any more comments on this?
About relationships?
Yeah.
Well,
They are lovely! We can stop it!
Which is harder?
what's the question?
What's harder, female or male?
You want me to talk at length about it?
No, just say female or male.
That's a hard question, though.
What do you think?
In this society, I don't know.
You don't know?
No, I don't know. I can't answer that.
That's